Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Infinity Workforce Solutions Fast Forward webinar series. Very happy to have you on today. My name's Steve Kessler, and I'll be the host of the program today. We're very excited to have a couple of representatives from the National Safety Council that are going to talk with us today. And I believe we advertised this program about being about safety culture. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I could think of a better organization than the National Safety Council to talk about safety culture, because that's really pretty much what their mission is. I believe I'm correct in saying that. So we're very excited to hear what they have to say. And I also wanted to introduce you all to Mark Ray. Mark's been a co-host with us here on a lot of our webinars. Mark's an industry veteran, has been an executive in the trucking industry for many years. I believe, Mark, if I'm not mistaken, you've done some work with the National Safety Council in some way. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. I've used their commercial truck defensive driving. I think it's called the Professional Truck Driving Program, in combination with a number of insurance companies to help a lot of companies with, some drivers that need some corrective action. And Deanne is going to be the Our Driving Concern, which is a fantastic program that's really designed. I'll let her do all the talking. I hear all the time, you know, our commercial trucks aren't in the wrong. It's all those other cars. It's everybody else. And Our Driving Concern has listened to those comments from our industry and our drivers, and has a program designed to help share that information and educate the rest of the motoring public on commercial trucks out there trying to operate. So it's going to be a great afternoon. I'm really looking forward to this.
Very good. Thanks, Mark. Well, let's move right on in. I notice a lot of folks are joining the meeting. If y'all don't mind out there, if you jump on the chat and just let us know who you are and who you work with, and maybe where you're joining us from, we'd love to know who's on here with us today. And while you all are doing that, let me introduce our guest today. First of all, we have April Ramos. April is a program manager, I think, with what they call roadway mobility with the National Safety Council. And as part of the Our Driving Concern that Mark talked about, April focuses a lot of her work on training and exhibits and public outreach. So we're very glad to have April here. Also joining us from the National Safety Council is Deanne Crane. Deanne is the Our Driving Concern Texas Program Manager at the National Safety Council, and her role is managing educational events, outreach, recognition, and reporting, as well as collaborating on content and other development. So we're very, very happy to have these two ladies join us today. And without any further delay, I'll let whoever's in charge. I think, April, you're going to kick it off, so we'll let April take off on the program. Go ahead, April.
Hi, thank you so much, Steve. Very happy to be here. Yes, I am with the Employer Traffic Safety Program, Our Driving Concern for the state of Texas. And yes, NSC does eat, breathe, sleep safety. And with that, let me tell you a little bit about our mission. Our mission is to save lives from the workplace to any place. We do that through employee and supervisor training, which you might be familiar with, especially our defensive driving program, consulting, research. We have networks. We have more than 50,000 members at 15,000 US work sites. So a really big network of safety professionals and organizations. We have a ton of tools and resources. We're going to talk to you about some of those things, and our driver and workplace training. So that's how we work on our mission of saving lives from the workplace to any place. But just a reminder, as we start talking about safety and safety culture, that safety is personal. So if you're not making safety personal at your work site, that could be the piece that's missing. This picture of this driver, he's got a family. He's got loved ones. So it's not just on his job that he's driving off the job too. You guys may have kids or a partner or spouse, parents, right? I have two teenage boys that drive with me all the time, ride with me. And so it is definitely the top of my list of safety concerns for my children is driving. It's the most dangerous thing that they do is ride as a passenger in a vehicle. You know, they walk to school, they brush teeth, none of those things. No one ever died from not brushing their teeth, but you can definitely get injured or die from riding in a motor vehicle. So let's jump right on in. It shouldn't come as a surprise. The leading cause of preventable injury-related death by state. So 20 states, motor vehicle crashes were the #2 cause of death. But for Texas, work-related deaths, so we're getting really specific now, work deaths in Texas for that same year, you can see that transportation incidents lead the pack, right? Over everything else like falls or exposure to harmful chemicals or substances. It is those transportation incidents. So what do you think are the top contributing factors to crash fatalities? So what of all the things that cause car crashes, right, are the top reasons that people die in those car crashes? Type it into the chat what you think it is. I'm pretty sure you're going to get it all right. I'll give you a moment. Check out that, see if I can see the chat. Distracted driving, cell phones, distracted driving, cell phone distractions. Yes, yes, absolutely. You guys, we know what the problem is, right? We know what the problems are. So as you can see from this slide, the contributing factors, the #1 is speeding, driver inattention or distraction, as many of you said. Failure to drive in a single lane, that's really specific, but that often happens as a result of speeding or your inattention, right? When you see someone on their phone, what do? They kind of drift, right? One way or the other, or maybe even both. Unsafe speed for the conditions. This is really critical in Texas because we don't like driving on anything other than dry, perfectly clear day, right? And so we need to adjust our speeds when those conditions call for it, right? And then #5, driving under the influence, and not just alcohol, but it could be drugs or some other substance. But let's talk a moment about speed, okay? How fast should you drive? Are the signs a suggestion? I'm going to check out your chat. How fast should you drive? And I'll let Deanne read out some of your comments in the chat.
We're hearing the recommended speed as the conditions require you to safely travel. Maximum recommended speed, 2 conditions, the speed limit. So a lot of the same things, right speed for the right conditions.
Absolutely. And so the posted speed limit is the law, but the law also states that you need to adjust that speed according to the conditions. And the reason that speed is such a problem, right, is because when you're going over that posted speed limit, the limit at which people have determined, engineers, is a safe speed for that particular road. So the width of the road, how many lanes there are, the degree, like how level, what your line of sight is. They've taken a lot of things into consideration to set a posted speed limit. So I'll give you an opposite example. If you've ever driven out to El Paso, what's the speed limit out there? What does that road look like? The speed limit's really high, isn't it? I think it's 80. Please feel free to correct me, but I want to say it's 80. And you can see for miles at some points, right? And the side of the road, there's nothing out there. It's not like a car is going to come darting out from the side because there's no road there. So that's the reason, or some of the reasons anyway, that they have higher speed limits out there because the conditions and the road allow it, right? But think about that 30 or 35 mile per hour speed limit in a neighborhood or residential area, right? It's low for a reason. Kids could come darting out, people could back out. there's so many reasons to adjust your speed and go slower. Next on that list of factors for fatalities was distraction. So types of distraction, you may have seen this before: visual, manual, cognitive. So that visual distraction, obviously taking your eyes off the road; manual, taking your hands off the wheel; and cognitive, taking your mind off driving. And it could be, that you're lost in your thoughts, but it could also be that you have a lot of stress, right, on the job or at home. And that is, occupying your thoughts and distracting you from driving. So this picture's on here with the football field and the 55-mile-per-hour sign, just so that you understand that 5 seconds, when you're traveling in feet per second, or your car is traveling in feet per second, right? And so 1.5 times your speed. So at 70 miles per hour, that's 105 feet per second. So just think about that for a second. If you're traveling 70 miles per hour, you're going 105 feet per second. That's 1/3 the length of a football field in just 1 second. So bringing you this information to help you kind of reframe the way you think about it, because oftentimes we'll hear from drivers, whether they're commercial motor vehicle drivers or just regular drivers, I look down for a second, whether it was on their phone or to get something. Well, when you're traveling at a higher rate of speed, even at a low rate of speed, it makes a difference. You're traveling much faster, you're covering more ground than you realize, right? We just kind of get desensitized to it after a while because we do it all the time, maybe without incident, right? So just something to think about when we hear that excuse of, it was just a quick call, it was just a short trip or whatever. Number 5 on that list earlier was impaired driving. So alcohol impaired driving killed 963 people in Texas in 2021. That's a lot of people, right? Even one is a lot, but this is a lot of people. And so we posted the law up here, and I just want to give you a reminder that the BAC, the 0.08, that's just the measurement at which you will get a citation. A person can be impaired before that. And in fact, at NSC, we like to remind people that impairment starts with the first drink or the first ingestion of whatever substance that you're taking. Impairment begins. So really important, just again, we're trying to reframe this, trying to rethink the way that we, our attitudes and beliefs about all these topics. And so before I get into the next slide, which talks about a workplace impairment survey that we conducted, I just want to ask the group, what are your attitudes and beliefs about the topics that we've just covered, such as distracted driving, impaired driving, speeding? Because a big part of culture, the biggest part of safety culture, is your attitude and belief. So not just, we're meeting the requirements of our organization or the federal government, but what do you believe about it? Are you following the requirement because you believe it's good for yourself, for your employees, for your business? Or are you just trying to meet the minimum, right? So what are your attitudes and beliefs? Could you use a refresher? Could you use a little, invigoration of your attitudes and beliefs? And do you share those with your employees? So I'll give you a minute to type in the chat. I know that's kind of a big question, but it's an important one. So take a minute to think about it if you need to. And definitely at the end, we'll leave some time for discussion because I think that's so important.
Well, it's great because we did have someone already type in the chat a great response, and it is because we all want to get home at night. So I think that is a great response.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic response. I think the same thing. Every time I'm out driving, I need to get home to my boys. I'm very specific. I want to get home to my boys. I want to get with my kiddos. So yeah, whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes to get there safely. Anything else, Deanne?
We have had a few respond that their expectation of themselves is what they expect of others. So they
That's great.
they walk the talk.
Good. That's awesome. I'm really, a big believer in that saying, do what I do, right? Sometimes it's the reverse. Do what I say, not what I do. And I think as safety leaders or just leaders in general, it's so important to have your actions speak louder than your words, right? It's important to say it, obviously, but people will listen to what you say, but then they watch what you do. So really important that those match up, right? That those align. Well, let's get moving, and feel free to keep typing in the chat if you were. But I want to tell you about an NSE employer survey that we conducted in 2020. I don't know why we did this during the pandemic, but we did. To understand how employers view impairment as a safety risk and also what they're doing to address it. And here are the results. A little over half of the respondents stated that impairment is decreasing the safety of their workplace. So it's definitely on their radar. They can see that it's a problem. 45% say impairment is causing more near misses. And then lastly, that 39% say impairment is causing more injuries. So what are they? I'm interested. I wish I had the rest of that survey to know what they did about it, but we're going to get some, give you guys some ideas. So most people know, I think, what this survey says is that employers know it's an issue, right? They know impairment is an issue. And one of those things that could be impairing is drowsy driving. And I don't think we give this enough attention. I am, was raised by old school parents and grandparents that really believed in like, you just suck it up, right? You're tired. Well, you get more sleep tomorrow. And if you don't get more sleep tomorrow, you can make up for it on the weekends. Well, as a student, me being sleep impaired, wasn't as critical as someone who's driving a semi truck for a living, right? Or another safety sensitive position, like, I don't know, your doctor or your airplane pilot. Those are safety sensitive jobs. Even someone preparing your food, right? You want them to be alert and do their job thoroughly and efficiently. So you can see 41% of drivers admitted to having fallen asleep or nodded off at driving at some point in their lives. I'm curious if any of you guys want to admit that's ever happened to you, but does that statistic is that surprising to you? Does that seem like it's true, that 41%? So getting close to half of people have admitted to nodding off or falling asleep. Sometimes you may have heard it called a micro sleep. Just a real quick, oh my God, I nodded off for a second.
Hi, April. This is Steve. I'll say for myself, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this. You're driving and suddenly you just kind of jerk up and you're not quite sure where you are, or you drove past your exit. You're still seeing the road and driving straight, but you're not taking in any information. So I used to call that functionally asleep.
Yes.
People literally are going down the road, but they're really almost unconscious. And so I just thought I'd share that. I've talked about that in some of our other programs, and most people have had that happen to them. So I think pretty much all of us have been drowsy driving and may not have even realized what was happening. I do want to say one other thing. We had a chat come in from Daniel talking about, with cold weather, people auto-medicating themselves with NyQuil and cold medicines and things of that nature can cause a lot of this drowsiness too. And we don't often think about those. We're always thinking about alcohol or just not enough sleep or something else. There are literally easy to obtain over-the-counter things that can be dangerous too.
Absolutely. And thanks to Daniel for bringing that up. And I'm really excited at the end of the presentation to talk to you guys about our new impairment training that actually has a huge segment on over-the-counter medications. And we do some practice exercises about reading labels. So I'm super excited to tell you guys about that. But yes, so drowsy driving, losing even 2 hours of sleep is similar to the effect of having 3 beers. If you think about that for a minute, that's kind of true, right? And being awake for more than 20 hours, which I can't even fathom, is equivalent of being legally drunk. So I hope that none of you have been awake for 20 hours. And if you have, I hope it's only been one time and then you never did that again. A little bit more about fatigue. 13% of work injuries could be attributed to sleep problems. That's kind of high, right? I mean, when you think about it, 13% attributed to fatigue, that's high. An NTSB study found that fatigue was a factor in 20% of highway crashes, and our own NSC survey shows that 97% of employees have at least one risk factor for fatigue. And I think that's true. If I were to ask you right now, who got a good night's sleep last night? Who got 7 to 9 hours of sleep, which is the recommendation? Nobody got that.
I did. but-
Good for you, Steve. That's good.
Uh,
He's walking the walk.
well, I'm getting old, so it comes a little easier than it does for other people. But
What?
um,
Come
I
on.
thought there's a really good comment here, and I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you all the time,
please.
April, but
Please.
somebody mentioned a warm vehicle after long exposure to the cold can put you to sleep quickly.
Absolutely.
I think we have all had a lot of cold weather here lately, and I can certainly relate to that.
Yeah, and
So
I
I
feel
get
like
warm
heat
and
does
comfortable.
too.
Say again.
I think heat does too. If you've ever gotten into your warm vehicle in the summer, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, right? It goes both ways, either cold or heat can absolutely do that. And NSC does have a great fatigue toolkit. And maybe I can post that in the chat for you guys in a little bit. Otherwise, we can follow up with you, Steve, and send it. It's a great toolkit to get you started all the way to address fatigue in your organization. Seatbelt use. So this brings us so important, right? How many years have you heard to buckle your seatbelt, click it or ticket, all these slogans? Well, we were making a lot of headway before COVID, and since COVID, we've kind of seen a little regression in seatbelt use. So definitely want to reiterate this to you. This picture on the left is no restraint fatalities and serious injuries. So this was the number of people who died or got a serious injury from a car crash that were not using a seatbelt, right? So you can see these numbers. This is a lot. So I don't know where you guys are from Texas, but maybe try to find your area. Really, anywhere you look, that number could be reduced significantly had they been wearing their seatbelt, right? I mean, we don't know 100% if that would eliminate all of these, but gosh, they would have had a chance, right? If they had worn their seatbelt. So you can see this stat up here in 2021. More than 46% of fatal crash victims were not restrained. That's just too high. And this number includes children as well. So just a reminder, adults, kiddos, anybody, we all need to buckle up and restrain ourselves in our vehicle. So the financial impact, again, this shouldn't be a surprise to you that the deaths have the largest financial impact. And it's not just on the job, it's off the job as well. Because, you know, your drivers might have dependents, right? So they share in your health plan, right? And so the costs of doing nothing affect all of these categories, right? From having to do additional screening, pay for injuries and other medical costs, prescription medicine, or someone could have become disabled as a result of their crash, insurance costs for the vehicle as well as health insurance, and then workers' compensation claims. So what do they say? An ounce of prevention can really make a difference, right? So yeah, employers can save lives, lower costs, receive free resources, and improve employee satisfaction. And we definitely want to hype up our driving concern program. We have two main trainings that we conduct, and we can do it in a virtual and in-person format. The Our Driving Concern training really talks more about some of these topics that we've covered today, such as speeding and aggressive driving and distracted driving. And then our drug impairment training is actually being revised as we speak. It's about to come out. And so that will have a small name change and go from drug impairment to workplace impairment. So we're doing that because not only are we going to talk about drugs and alcohol, but we're also going to talk about factors such as stress and fatigue, because those can impair your work as much as drugs and alcohol, and sometimes are the cause of you consuming drugs and alcohol, right? Some more training opportunities from us. Next week, we have our pilot workplace impairment training. So I just want to stress that word pilot because it'll be the first time we've run it through for the public. So if you want to participate in that, it's free. We'd love to have you. We will be asking for a lot of feedback though, because like I said, this is a pilot. So we want to definitely work out all the kinks. And then on Tuesday, February 20th, you can see transportation injury hazards and how employers can mitigate risk. And then Thursday, March 7th, we'll talk about unchecked recalls. Resources. We have a ton of resources to help bolster your safety culture, because a big piece of safety culture is not only your attitudes and beliefs, but our employees seeing safety messages anywhere and everywhere possible, right? So from posters to digital resources, everywhere they turn, they're hearing about it, seeing it, you're talking about it, right? And so our social networks are definitely part of that piece to help you build your safety culture. We're on everything. And I'm sorry we haven't updated our Twitter icon. I know it's now X, I believe. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, we're everywhere. And then also just want to let you know about our Employer Traffic Safety Awards. So if your company is doing a great job, or you know of a company or employer that's doing a great job traffic safety wise, we'd love for you to nominate them or have them self-nominate, because they're definitely allowed to do that. That recognition period, or rather application period, is open until March 15th. So here's our contact information, and we definitely want to open it up for any of your specific safety culture questions.
Hey, April, one question that I have, there's been a comment or two on here. Obviously, your focus is in the state of Texas. Does the National Safety Council do these programs similar to what you're talking about all across the United States?
So our driving concern, that's a great question. We have ODC, or our driving concern, in Louisiana and Ohio as well.
Okay.
But the National Safety Council, our organization that we're part of, has resources and information and trainings on these topics across the nation. So everything from ODC is free because we are grant funded from TxDOT, and our other two states are also grant funded, so their services and resources will be free as well. NSE has some paid products that you guys may already be familiar with or already be using, and we can connect you with someone else at NSE to go over all those products, because it's a lot. It's a lot. But yeah, I mean, we do have other states, and Deanne can probably speak better to this, that even though ODC isn't in their state, they still access our website and use our materials.
Yeah, we had one comment here from Sam that said they use a lot of National Safety Council materials there in Georgia. So
awesome.
There's quite a lot of that
Wonderful.
being used around the country.
Well,
So,
and in regards to the Our Driving Concern program, specifically Texas, because we've been in the state of Texas for about 16 years. And so we have a lot of content on our website, and anyone in any state can take that and download it and use it for how they see fit. They can sign up for our newsletter and get chunks of safety, specifically transportation safety information, and take that and use it in their own newsletters or things like that. We've got safety talks. We're trying to help transportation safety people not recreate the wheel. So you definitely can use it. The Texas our driving concern logo will be on it. But you could use it in different ways, and we would be happy to discuss, some different ways that people outside of the state, but inside the state of Texas as well, could use our information. Ohio and Louisiana are new to us this year, so we're very excited about that. And building that program in those two states and hopefully future states. So you're absolutely right, Steve.
Well, I've got a question, April or Deanne. I'm not sure if this is something that's in your wheelhouse or not, but very often, we talk about, the plaintiff lawyers out there and the lawsuits that they put together for big trucking companies and big punitive damage awards and all that. And I'm wondering if you're aware of whether or not a company's safety culture, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a trucking company, would be a target for a plaintiff lawyer. If they would they attack a company that has a poor culture if they determine that?
I don't know that I could say that. I mean, I think the opposite would be true. If you have a strong safety culture, you can show
Right.
that. So, I
And
mean,
show as more of a positive.
right.
Yeah. Okay, and are you aware of any, obviously a big part of, keeping your company safe and all that is, obviously it saves lives, it saves a lot of costs for companies, including their insurance costs. And I'm wondering if I have any comments about, would the assessment of a company's safety culture have an impact on coverage and premiums and so forth for insurance?
I'll jump in there just a second. If I'm hearing you correctly, I do think it does have an impact if your safety culture is and includes your transportation safety culture. If you're putting a focus on that, then you're having reduced injuries, reduced crashes, and therefore your rates should be lower because you have less incident rates.
Yeah, well,
You might
response
want to
here
jump in
from,
there, April, but
yeah, there's a response here from Sam, talking about that he's had that experience that, culture actually has an impact in litigation. So, I think you're dead on there, Deanne, that, certainly a positive safety culture can go a long way to demonstrate the company's not negligent, they're safety focused. It's hard to punish a company that's doing everything they're supposed to do from a safety standpoint. People are going to make mistakes, accidents are going to happen, but you can't punish a company to the tune of millions and millions of dollars if they've done their due diligence and they've truly built a culture of safety. So thought that's actually a good question. So
Yeah. And I think, Steve, too, you can see the difference between someone that's just met the minimum and someone that's gone above and beyond. I think, in those instances, if you're trying to
Yeah.
make a case for yourself, you can show that and it will be really apparent to, a judge or jury.
yeah. Let's see if there are any other questions in here.
I did see one about motorcycles and restraints.
Okay.
Motorcycles don't have restraints on them, like a seatbelt. So, I'm not really sure how they count those, maybe as an ejection, but I think that might be some separate statistics. But I can look if that's an important statistic for you if for motorcycles. So hope you got a screenshot of our contact information. If not, I think Steve might send it out so we can follow up with you if that's important to you.
Very good. Any other questions here?
No, I would just say on this issue of culture, it's easy to discuss, but it's difficult to validate in the courtroom or in litigation because it's kind of an abstract concept. And I think, the training, coordination, our driving concern program are things that can be used to validate safety culture and take it from this abstract concept to here's a specific action that we have taken within our organization, not limited to drivers only. It needs to be shared with, billing departments, payroll departments,
Absolutely.
operations need HR. It's a company-wide initiative. So that culture issue is a huge issue in our industry, and I certainly appreciate the work the National Safety Council is doing to educate not only commercial truck drivers, but the jungle that's out there driving cars and motorcycles and buses and pulling trailers and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I think you're right. And I think also when you think about, you're establishing your policies, you're setting those standards for everyone in the company, and then you're educating and you're training those all your employees, and then you're evaluating, what's working, what's not working. If you do have an incident, then you're evaluating the causes and you're making adjustments and you're retraining. Training should be consistent and ongoing all the time. So I love that you said that, because it is a full circle that you're just, you're continually moving from different facets of that.
So here's a question. I don't know if y'all heard me. I may have my mic down for a minute. What are the ingredients of a strong safety culture?
Oh, that's a great question. I think Deanne and I both have stuff to say about that. Well, I think having policies and procedures that everybody participated in creating. So not just ones that leadership or management created and said, follow these, but maybe starting with that and then getting everyone involved in the implementation or even the revision of them. That way everyone has buy-in in your company. Like you said, from billing to the drivers, if everybody's on board with the policy, then that's a huge piece of the culture. And I'll use my own kids again as my example, because we tend to do that as parents, right? As your kids get older, they challenge what you say, right? So in my house, and maybe in some of yours as well, I try to give my kids more say in what we do, right? And everything in the household. So when we make rules or establish our own household policies, I'm first to say to them now, well, what do you think it should be? Right? Like Mr. Smarty Pants, like, you don't like it. Well, what do you think it should be? What do you think would be fair? And, most of the time they'll say something fair and I'll say, okay, that's the new rule. And so if they break it, I said, well, you made the rule. So, I don't understand. Help me understand why now you don't like this rule. So, I think safety culture is the same thing. If everyone is agreeing to it, it's easier to hold people accountable. And as a leader, I don't think that you have to hold them as accountable as often. I think they hold each other accountable, right? Because they're like, dang, I made this rule. I was in on the, the creation of it. I was really, I really need to stay with it. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is making sure everyone comes to the table to agrees on what your safety practices are going to be.
I agree 100% with April, and I do think that the being consistent and ongoing, and also continually evaluating your culture and your program are very important to having a successful program.
I totally agree with that. A couple of other things that popped into the chat here, and I'm maybe changing the topic here just a little bit, but Richard has asked, I'm not sure if this is a question for this forum, but is there something in National Safety Council about forklift safety, such as number of people around, number of people such as driver and ground guide, spotter, or just a certified driver? Do you have training in those areas?
I'd be
Forklift
surprised if we didn't.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have a lot of products, so very happy to connect Richard with someone that's well versed on all of the paid product side of the house, so they can get him exactly what he needs.
Perfect. Another comment here from Mackenzie. We're talking about safety culture. Upper management support is huge for safety culture.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's any question about that.
Absolutely. And I think, from at least from what Steve and Mark and other people that we've heard from, a lot of times upper management is supportive. They may have issues getting, people downstream on board, or just everybody collectively on board. So that's kind of what we talked about earlier, when everyone comes to the table to help to make those policies and procedures. Yeah, and then make people responsible. Another great tip that I know some other companies do is, instead of the leader, the safety person having the safety minute for talks and things like that, assign other people in the company to do it, and have a schedule. Like, at this all hands meeting, the person that does our billing, I keep going back to that example, you're going to be in charge of the safety minute, 60 seconds on safety. And that really helps people think about, like, what's important? What do people want to hear about? What kind of incidents have we been having? So it just helps get everybody to have some buy-in, some real life buy-in, right?
Here's a
I had
comment.
heard a story.
Good.
I heard
Oh,
a
go ahead.
story years ago, and I'm not sure if he was upper management, but he was a manager. He was a supervisor, and he did not wear his seatbelt while driving in his fleet pickup truck, and as a result, he was involved in a crash and died. And when they looked back, he had set through like 52 over his years of being with the company. He had set through 52 safety talks and
Wow.
didn't wear his seatbelt. So when you think about that, if he's not wearing his seatbelt and he's not promoting that, and again walking the talk, how many people underneath him were not practicing wearing their seatbelt? So just think about that: 52 safety talks. And I think they were, if I remember the story right, the 52 were on buckling up. But that's a lot to set through and still not wear your safety belt as a supervisor, and showing your employees that it's okay not to follow the policies that your company sets out. So I always remember that story, because it's like, wow, 52, and you didn't do it. And as a result, he lost his life.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up, Deanne, because there's a comment here from Sam. He says, when it comes to creating a positive safety culture, upper management is at times holding the company back from full buy-in, thinking it does not apply to them. And I think that really kind of tells the story that it has to be across the board. If upper management's not playing the game and doing what they're supposed to do, how can they expect people underneath the company to think that they're serious and sincere about it? It's not an easy thing to create in a culture. It takes time. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of conversation. Somebody, I think Richard said, safety should be lateral and up and down. And boy, I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's got to be all encompassing from top to bottom in the company. Otherwise, you really aren't quite there yet with a really good safety culture. Some really good comments here. Any other questions, comments? Reading the
Yeah,
chat.
Deanne, I meant to put that in the general chat. I was trying to post a link to one of our cost calculators in reference to upper management. Sometimes the thing that can push them over is the real cost savings, right? Seeing an example of how much that it could actually save their company, save their business. So I was trying to put in there for our fatigue cost calculator on NSC website. Thanks, Deanne. And we have several other ones. This is just one. So, if your employer is thinking, well, fatigue's not really an issue, this is a great place to start with them, perhaps. And NSC is always here.
I saw that Richard.
Go ahead.
I saw that Richard asked about safety minute briefings. So we call them safety huddles, but they're tailgate talks, and we have, I think, over 30 of them on our site. You can take them and, use what you want to out of them. But definitely reach out to us, and we'll be happy to connect you in the right direction for the specifics that you're looking for.
Very good. Very good.
Wasn't what it was supposed to do.
And Deanne, I'm gonna have to let you respond to some of these on here because I'm not sure what to tell them.
Oh, how do we reach out? So I will go ahead and put April's email and my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to either one of us, both of us, and then we can connect with you. So I'll do that really quick.
While you're doing that, there's another comment here from Sam saying buy-in is totally different from both ends, taking care of everyone. Workers need examples how it protects them. This is just what you did. While upper management needs statistics showing how safety saves money, bringing both to the same level playing field. That is so true. And, we've obviously Infinity Workforce, we're a learning management system. We're all about training. And we've had customers tell us, once they really ramped up training and did it on a regular and consistent basis, that accidents and incidents decline. And, in today's world, I don't care what kind of an accident you're in, can be really minor to your car, but the cost is thousands of dollars to repair it. So it's pretty quick return on your investment by promoting safety and making sure that you're reducing some of those things. My gosh, think of the cost of repairs, think of the cost of work comp claims, insurance claims, all the other things that happen. And sometimes insurance doesn't cover those indirect costs that are the result of these unsafe things that happen, right? There's no question in my mind that a safety culture will pay dividends big time in the end. But I think we've got to move, especially our trucking companies out there, move beyond just being compliant and think more about making sure we have truly a culture of safety in our company. I think most trucking companies are compliant to the regulations, but that's not doing enough to keep accidents and fatalities out there on the roads. Now here's Noah saying, educate drivers and upper management to the real cost of even minor incidents. And I think that's kind of where I was headed, just a little backing into a stationary object and doing a little damage can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And God forbid there was not a person back there that you backed into, not just the loading dock. So it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And treating those minor incidents as an incident, right? There's no minor or major, they're all incidents. That's
Right.
part of your attitudes and beliefs, right? Like, oh, minor one, that's okay. It didn't cost that much. No. You have to have the same attitude about them all. We're looking for zero incidents, and it's completely possible, right? It is possible. There's a great story of, and you guys may have heard this because it was celebrated a lot here in Texas. We had a driver for HEB that had 1 million miles with zero incidents, right? I mean, that's any of you on the drivers on the line know that's a lot of miles. It's a lot of miles. And he essentially has a perfect record. So it's absolutely possible with a great safety culture, with great attitudes and beliefs, right?
Right.
Just to summarize things, Steve, I guess I would comment that the absence of a safety culture have certainly contributed to a billion-dollar industry for our plaintiffs' attorneys to run ads and put posters and billboards, and they get a return on all that. They're making billions of dollars from the organizations that have not engaged in this important initiative of safety culture. So you need to do
Very good. Any other questions? One thing I will say, a big part of creating that safety culture, and I know April and Deanne and the National Safety Council believe, but training is really important, and it has to be done with some frequency in order for behaviors to change. Typically, you can't teach somebody about something one time and expect that's going to last. People tend to fall back into their own habits. And that's really kind of what our company is all about. You know, we're all about training. And for some of our companies out there, if you'd like to learn more about how we might be able to help you create that safety culture, we would love to have you tell us that, and we will reach out and tell you all what we have and what we might be able to do to help you educate and work and build that safety culture. I think we've got a great platform to deliver that and make sure that people took it. And I think, you know, the efforts that we can help you with and what the National Safety Council can do for you can really get us a long way to get into that safety culture. So I think we're pretty close to the end. Does anybody else have any last minute questions? I'll go ahead and take this off of here before we adjourn, but let me just say this. It's been a great bit of information that you ladies have provided. Thank you, April. Thank you, Deanne, for what you do and for joining us today to talk about this issue, which Mark and I talk about this all the time. I think safety culture is where everybody's going to have to focus now. And we feel like that companies will be more and more evaluated on the culture of safety, more so than how many accidents they had or how many violations they had. It's going to be more about demonstrating that culture of safety that's going to help people judge and distinguish between one company and another. So, April, Deanne, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Those of you still out there, we will provide a link to the replay. So if you want to share this with some other folks in your company, we'll provide you that link. And again, you know, reach out to April and Deanne and ask your questions. If they can't answer, I know they can find the right people that can. And also, I do want to say, keep in mind, National Safety Council is a nonprofit organization. They rely on donations to do all the great work that they do. So if you're inclined, I would absolutely encourage you to put some of your money where it can do a lot of good. So donate to them. And I think that's what keeps us all going. So April, Deanne, thank you. Mark, thanks for being on. And thank all of you out there for joining us today. So we look forward to having you on an upcoming program. So thank you all for coming and great presentation. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Everyone be
Thank you.
safe.
All right. Bye. Thanks.